All right, welcome back. Today we're in the back of the Jeep, hanging out. We're gonna watch a Tim Dillon video. Ignore my voice. I've been sick for the past couple of days. Got absolutely destroyed, just coughing crap up. So try to get through this, but
boomers are gonna retire. This is real.
Tim Dillon, for those of you who don't know, comedian, but he talks a lot about just like politics, economics, and stuff from a very rudimentary standpoint. But he's pretty spot on with a lot of things he talks about. So let's go through his video and see what he has.
The boomers are going to retire. Now, they don't want to. They don't want to. And we have some articles we'll talk about later in the show where the boomers actually don't want the world to continue. A friend of mine sent me this border thing. This is so hilarious. Over Instagram. And was basically like, she sent me this article like, are we going to have a civil war? And she goes, what an exciting time to be alive. They are giddy at the prospect of the entire American experiment failing and the civilization going dark. Boomers are ebullient at the
I've got this theory that we've never had such a wealth disparity in this world. So the top 1%, the 0.1%, have never been as rich as they have ever before relative to the rest of the population. So I do feel like there is just sort of a fraction of people who they have all the wealth, all the power in the world. And now that they're kind of exiting this world, they don't want to let go of that power. They don't want to let go of that wealth. And it does seem like there's some sort of like, whatever you want to call it, like evil component at the top that really just wants to make like a lasting impression upon the earth. There definitely seems to be sort of a anti-humanist agenda or an anti-humanist prevailing thought within sort of that group of people. I guess the dichotomy would be like, you have people like Elon Musk who are, you can tell he's pro-human. He wants the population to grow. He wants the human race to flourish, is what it seems like. He has a ton of kids, and he's working to try to improve the future humanity. And then you have other people on the other side of that spectrum who it's like, it's pretty open and apparent. Like, these people want to decrease the population of the earth, whether it's a fiscal motivation, just a planetary motivation, or whatever it may be. But it does seem like there's this anti-humanist agenda for sure on that other side. So
they are sitting around pubs and casual restaurants, and they're sitting at country clubs, and they are actually very excited about the prospect of civilization crumbling because they are at the end of their life. The boomers never wanted their children to have better lives than they did, ever. The boomers were threatened by their children. The boomers viewed their children as obstacles to their own success and fulfillment. This is all in the book coming out. I know you don't think it's coming out. I don't care what you think. It's coming out. It'll be there in the summer. You read it on the beach. But this is all true. And the more I observe these boomers, which I have for my entire life, and I'm really keying in on it now, what I'm noticing is that they're kind of a death cult. The boomers are a death cult in the way that radical Islam is a death cult. Radical Islam doesn't really have an interest in anybody existing that isn't a devotee of what they think and what they believe. Boomers are the exact same way. They are ready to usher in the apocalypse, and they're doing it gleefully. They're holding on to all the houses and all the money. You know, we have an article here, 80% of the stock market. 80% of the stock market.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a prevailing attitude of the silver generation or the silver tsunami that's coming through, that, you know, their most prized possession, their wealth generator, which, you know, throughout all of history, I've said this before, that owning your home generation over generation has been the biggest wealth creation asset the world has ever seen. So when you now have these people where, you know, they're so proud at buying a house, and if you just bought a house at any single point in time anywhere in the United States, you're winning. So you're not losing on that. You know, obviously there's timing differences like 07, 08, but in general, the boomers are extremely proud of thinking that they made the smartest decision in the world. If you could have just been as, had the foresight that they had to buy a house. So all that pride is wrapped up in that house. And it is odd. You do hear of a lot of families that, they're not handing down their houses to their later generations. They're either selling their houses outright, for a massive profit, and either downsizing or just going out somewhere else. But yeah, there does seem to be an odd intergenerational attitude when it comes to either passing down your house or, what they feel like is just giving away their most prized possession, which is kind of understandable. But in that same sense, it is a death cult. If you're not wanting to have your entire bloodline, your future bloodline, to inherit anything like that. So I've heard of many stories like that, and it is an odd sentiment. So it does come back to that sort of like death cult minded, or that death cult mindset. There definitely seems to be some sort of concerted effort to not leave the world in a better place when they're gone. So, and that's on many fronts, not just housing or assets and wealth, but it just definitely seems like there's a concerted effort, whether it's just many factors coming together all at once, being sort of like on the back end of the Western civilization. It definitely seems like we've peaked, but when it comes to demographic issues, global fiscal dominance of the West, whether it's the EU, NATO, and the United States, it seems like all these factors and all these things are coming together at one. So it'll be interesting to see.
It is owned by elderly people, boomers. They can sell it and trigger a downturn. Here we go. Your grandma is a down.
Yeah, and like I said, that this wealth inequality that we're experiencing right now, I'm gonna double check this, but I think it goes back all the way to like feudal France, back when the French had their their uprisings. But it's been hundreds of years, I believe, that this wealth disparity, this wealth inequality, and by inequality, I don't mean like equality outcomes. I mean just the pure separation of the top 1% to the bottom. I mean the pure consolidation of everything and all the assets in the top 1%. It's we've never had this in a long time.
Side risk to the stock market. How more old people owning equities could exacerbate a downturn. The boomers are holding the American economy hostage. They're holding it hostage, and they can at any time flood the market by selling all their stock, taking all the cash. Now, many people go, well, they're going to take it for medical emergencies, then they're going to take the cash, and whatever they're going to do with it, okay, they're going to like fund some nightmarish thing. It's like Pinky in the Brain with these people. Like they're going to take the cash out of the stock market so they can build a laser to zap the world. The way that they are going on now, refusing to sell these McMansions, they will not downsize, they will not give up their jobs. Biden.
And again, this is the top 5%. You have a ton of boomers and a ton of silver surfers who, they're getting crushed by inflation as well. Their insurance premiums are going up. Their taxes on their properties are going up. So they're getting squeezed as well, all while being on a fixed income. So it's that disparity between generations, let's say intergenerational. It's also intra-generational, meaning, you have the top 5% of boomers who own everything versus the rest of the boomers who are, they're barely hanging on, or they can't afford their medical expenses, or they're going to be facing going out on the street. So that disparity still exists between generations as well.
Will not step aside. He's 80. He's an octogenarian. He's elderly. He's foaming at the mouth. He's got dementia, and he will not step aside. Who's that that just died in office? Was it Feinstein? Mm-hmm. They die in office now, these senators and Congress. One article I read.
This is one thing we have never experienced, is the elderly class of politicians who are not leaving. You know, Gen X, you would think, would be the most overrepresented or representative group of people in Congress, in the House, in government positions, whether it's local, state, or federal. But yeah, you just have these, I mean, he's pretty spot on right here. Like, they are grasping to power and they are not wanting to give it up whatsoever. So that is one thing we have never seen. We have a class of people who are self-interested, completely self-dealing, and they're doing everything they can to hang on to those seats of power.
One of the Pentagon, by the way, prepared a report. This is to go true. The Pentagon has prepared a report. Now, one of the threats, they talk about bioweapons. They're talking about COVID. It's on Drudge. This is a new thing they wrote about, how, like, you know, here's the threats that we anticipate. Okay? Here are the threats that we anticipate coming. One of the threats, okay, is, this is great. A new study by the Office of the Secretary of Defense provides a unique window into the views of military planners and how they see future forms of warfare. So now we know COVID, we go da-da-da-da-da, we got COVID. So here, if you go up, so I love this, okay? Additionally, listen to this, okay? Additionally, the authors caution against the possibility of government employees replacing their natural eye lenses with artificial ones containing tiny cameras connected to micro storage devices. The small cameras could collect classified intelligence and leak it to foreign adversaries. Okay, now the reason that they're worried about this, by the way, go up a little bit here. They're talking about, in another intriguing scenario, seemingly inspired by the decline of Senator Dianne Feinstein, and this time set in a more distant future, the report suggests that elderly congressional leaders, desperate to retain power, this is everything I've ever said. It's in this report that the Pentagon has now just come out. The Pentagon is saying the biggest threat to the body politic, to the survival of our country, is not climate change. It's not, for all its other issues, immigration. It is boomers. Boomers will not relinquish power. Listen to this. This is actually really fascinating. In another intriguing scenario, seemingly inspired by the decline of Senator...
Yeah, and going back to that, like, I don't know, the cybernetics, the robotics, implanting things into your body. I mean, that's one thing about Elon Musk. I don't understand. He obviously, it seems like he has good intent with it, but I don't believe any of that. I'm not getting anywhere near that. What do you guys think?
Senator Dianne Feinstein, and this time set in a more distant future. And by the way, they mean like 5 years from now. The report suggests that elderly congressional leaders desperate to retain power secretly install state-of-the-art brain-computer interface devices. These devices, commonly used among wealthy senior citizens in this scenario, initially helped the senators regain mobility and speech after years of clear cognitive decline. This, by the way, is the wildest report I have read in a long time. I read these things so you don't have to. I sift through them. I work hard to take these private planes. You don't think I do. Many of you don't think I do.
All right, well, that's that. What do you guys think? Is that a fair representation or an accurate assessment of what's going on right now? I know it's not all boomers, and there are plenty of decent people out there, but it does seem like there's a very the most wealthy, and the most privileged when it comes to positions of power, class of people that really don't seem to have good intentions in mind for future generations. And whether it's their fault or not, I mean, it's hard to say, but it definitely seems like in the United States especially, and especially across the Western world, there are a ton of socioeconomic factors that are all coming to a head at once that are kind of creating this kind of dystopian, what could be a dystopian nightmare situation coming up. But not to be too dark, but what do you guys think? Was that a fair, accurate representation? Where am I right? Where am I wrong? But hopefully see you guys on the next one.